It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is April 22nd, 2025. This is the B block, which means we started right around 7:20. Okay, John, a couple things to talk about. First off, remind me of this. I have to discuss with you a situation that I heard on KWMU yesterday, which was the 7 o'clock hour. And to give you an example of how an exciting life I have, I was sitting in my car eating my Domino's pizza with my Diet Mountain Dew and listening to KWMU, the replay of Elaine Cha's, what do they call that? What's the show they call at noon?
It's St. Louis Whispers.
St. Louis Whispers. Okay, but first off, we didn't talk about yesterday about KDHX at all, okay? I'm just going to say, I'm going to do a little homework here, okay? What I think is interesting, and I'm going to tie these things together with KWMU. The story that came out earlier this year is University of Missouri system is going to, I say, give KWMU as well as KMST and Rolla and WQUB in Quincy, Illinois, to the Friends of KWMU. Give it to them, okay? And what's interesting about it is when I did my journalistic thing, nobody will say, well, we don't have any details. We don't really know. It's a long time in the future. We don't really know what's going to happen. Okay, I will just say this. The bidding war is on for KDHX, and it's up to like $5.5 million, okay? Let me just give you some facts. KDHX is, their power is 42,000 watts, okay? KWMU's power is 100,000 watts. In broadcasting, especially in FM, the more wattage, obviously, the more coverage area. And most importantly, the height of the tower. KDHX the antenna is about 500 feet above ground level. KWMU is about 1,000 feet above ground level. So we have one station that's more than twice as powerful as the other, and we have another station which is about twice as high. And not only that, the tower from KWMU is pretty much in the center of the metro area. It's down in the Sappington, Shrewsbury area there, where a lot of the big towers are. And the KDHX tower is down in Jefferson County. Now, my point being is if people are bidding up $5 million plus for KDHX, which is, let's say, half the station that KWMU is, don't you think that if they put if the University of Missouri essentially put out offers to sell KWMU, don't you think they'd get like $10 million? And then
it's based on your math, Brad, based on your veteran radio industry math, it would seem that way, which underscores the fact that the state will not be giving away the radio license. But I understand and appreciate your theory.
I'm telling you, John, I know this is going to happen. You don't believe me. I do. Okay. I was listening to KWMU, munching on my pizza, sitting alone in my car. Actually, what's sort of interesting about this is I'm sitting in a church parking lot, eating my pizza, munching on my pizza, and drinking my soda. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I have a life, don't I? I have this incredibly exciting life. And I'm listening to Elaine Cha, and I can't remember the lady's name, but I know you'll know immediately who she is. She's the reporter for the Missouri Independent, and she's talking about the cannabis story. You know exactly who that is, correct?
The cannabis story, you said?
Yes, the cannabis story.
Oh, yeah, that would be Rebecca Rufus.
See, I knew you know exactly who that was. Yeah. And they were, you and I talked about this. Was it yesterday or the day before? Or was it last week we talked about this?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Well, what story is it, Brad?
Well, the story about what they called it was, and let me get the exact term. See, once again, when you listen to KWMU, you just can't use regular terms. You have to use all these very high, as they used to say back in the day, highfalutin language. You know what I'm saying? He's talking like a highfalutin man. What does that term mean? Remember, you used to see that old Westerns. The guy comes to town and he's using those highfalutin words. Let me hold. Where's my stuff at? I got to find it here. I want to get it exactly because I actually.
Is it about the minority business owners?
Okay, yes, but there's a term for that. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
It's called social equity. Let me try it. I can't talk this morning. Social equity cannabis licensure. So in other words, they're giving away these licenses to create social equity. Essentially, what they're doing is they're giving it away to underprivileged people that don't have enough cash. But they pointed out the fact that this one dude, and I didn't write down his name, of the what is there, like 16 licenses were revoked last week alone. He's responsible for 12 of them or something like that.
Yeah, that was the centerpiece of Rebecca's piece.
Right. And she goes on to say, this guy has done this in state after state after state after state. Okay. All this vetting that Missouri's supposed to do, don't you think they would look at that? And don't you think they would do like a Google search and put this guy's name in the Google search, and wouldn't it pop up that he had this license in whatever state revoked because of the fact that in this state revoked 3 of his licenses, and this state revoked 6 of his license, and essentially couldn't they say, dude, you're out. We're not taking any applications that have anything to do with you. Isn't there something that could be done like that?
Yeah, and I think that at the first round of implementation, I think that you have, when you pass a law, I think your staff is limited. I'm going to make excuses for the Division of Cannabis Regulation here. I think you only have so much staff that's interested in getting the program off, pardon the expression, as soon as possible, pardon the expression again. And I think that based on the draft laws that the division passed back in December, or at least they proposed back in December, it's doing exactly what you would say and what Rebecca Rivas would say and what critics of the program would say, which is we've got to be able to look at this stuff and actually dig in deeper. And I think part of it too, Brad, is that you don't want to scrutinize in the first round of after you get something proposed. If you're dealing with minority business owners, you probably don't want to look at them too closely. You don't want to run a credit check. You don't want to run a criminal check, because that would be discriminatory. So let's just take their application and let's take them at their word. And I think the crux of it, though, Brad, is that when the Division of Cannabis Regulation got these applications, they actually had a minority's name on it that says, hey, I'm Rufus R. Jones, and I live off Renfro and Riverview Gardens, and I'm totally going to run a dispensary. And then this gentleman, this white guy, comes in, and it's like, okay, now that we got the application, I'm going to actually be the minority, or I'm actually going to be the majority owner of this business. You get what I'm saying? Yep. So if you're the Division of Cannabis Regulation, you don't know the backstory of how Rufus R. Jones submitted his application. You just see Rufus R. Jones in 63137 and say, he sounds black. Let's give him a loan. Let's give him a license.
I get that, but how does this guy's name surface? Does he come in then and buy the license? Or
yeah, that's exactly what happens. And then eventually Rufus R. Jones is like, wait a minute, I thought I was going to be rolling in the cash, but I only got 20 grand out of this deal, and your dispensary's selling 20 grand every 2 days in marijuana, you know? Okay. And then so eventually they get disgruntled because they realize they got the shaft. And then they go to Rebecca Rivas and say, hey, I don't like this. The gentleman's name is Erwin R. Shyster, and you need to look into him.
But what I find fascinating about what you just said is they don't want to pry into these people's backgrounds. But yet, if I go to the bank and say, hey, I want to buy this house, and, I'm a really good guy, and by the way, I'm a minority, I'm Mocha Java, where do I sign? Can I pick up the check tomorrow? They're not going to say, oh, Brad, great, sign right here and we'll have that cashier's check for you in the morning. No, they're going to do a proctology exam on me. They're going to, ask me for my credit rating, and they're going to do a credit bureau check on me, and they're going to, ream me about my FICO score, and they're going to want to know why this happened and why in 1973 that I didn't make my Visa payment on time, and you know what I'm saying?
I do know, but also they probably saw you at the bank in the parking lot eating a Domino's pizza and listening to NPR, and said anybody who does this doesn't have a circular item to urinate in.
I think I was in a church parking lot, but that's a whole nother story. Okay.
Oh, church parking lot. That's right.
Okay. If you ever listen, I know you probably don't, but the guys who come on right after us, I say it's one of the best talk shows in the country. It really is. Armstrong and Getty, 2 very interesting guys. One guy, and it's sort of interesting, I say I would sort of be the Jack Armstrong of the show, and John is the Joe Getty. John is the reasoned guy. I'm sort of the weirdo kind of guy. Well, Joe, what do you think about this? I can't believe they did that. And then John would say, well, Brad, research shows. So that's the way the show goes. Okay, yesterday they had a very interesting segment about Pueblo, Colorado. And this dovetails nicely into what we just talked about. they talked about the fact that the city leaders in Pueblo made a conscious decision to make Pueblo and as they described this, they were going to make it marijuana-wise the Napa Valley of the country. And the idea being is, if you think of Napa Valley, you think of wines. Everybody goes there and you enjoy all these great wines. They wanted to make Pueblo into the same thing, where it would essentially be tourist. Tourists would flock to Pueblo.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm tracking with that.
Marijuana, oh my God, if you want really good marijuana, you have to go to Pueblo, Colorado, that kind of a thing. Okay, so I start doing my research on this. Now, this story is a year old. Actually, it was written by Tracy Harmon. And what I find interesting about the name of the newspaper is the Pueblo Chieftain. Now, aren't they having this problem in Illinois, or in Colorado, where we have in Illinois, where if you can't name your school team after an Indian tribe, how can this newspaper get away with being called the Chieftain? But yet, that's not the
two things. They got a dead Indian letter, and then they got a live Indian letter.
Okay, let me give you the headline here. 10 years into recreational marijuana sales in Pueblo, the once blooming industry is wilting. And the article talks about how the wheels are falling off. I mean, and because of the fact, and it's a very well-written article, but it sort of dovetails into what Armstrong and Getty were talking about, where here we go again, where it's government against free industry. Because the government maintains all these checks and balances, and the product has to be tested and stuff like that. And so if all of a sudden, and this is the similar situation that's happened in California, one of the pitches the government gave of legalizing marijuana, and to a certain extent in Missouri as well too, is it'll knock out all the illegal guys. Well, guess what? The illegal guys are saying, don't buy that government dope. Our stuff's 10 times more powerful. People go like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you could win the lottery and get a little fentanyl sprinkled in there that'll really knock on your butt.
Right, really knock you into the next universe, okay? It was, here, a little history. Medicinal marijuana use was initially approved by Colorado in 2000, followed by 2020 make it legal as one of the first legalized recreational cannabis states in the world, or in the state, the United States. Man, I'm having a rough morning this morning. Get this. State recreational marijuana sales have declined 5% between 2022 and 2023. But in Pueblo County, that decline is now down 16%. So what's happened is all these people that were, oh my God, we're going to make so much money. And the city of Pueblo, and they have a similar situation where we have here in Missouri, only it's more egregious, where the city of Pueblo gets 8% above and beyond the sales tax. Whatever.
Ooh, nice. Yes. Very nice. That'll pay for a lot of parks, Brad.
Right. Whatever the Colorado sales tax rate is, and they do get a piece of that as well, too, because there's part of the city and county taxes baked into that state sales tax, but they get another 8%. So people are going like, okay. Now, and it's interesting because it talks about, here we go. Total recreational cannabis sales in Pueblo County. 2020, it was 109 million. 2021, 113 million. It went up. But in 2022, it went down to 90 million. In 2023, it went down to 75.6 million. And as sales income has dropped, so has Pueblo County state share of the retail marijuana sales tax, because the county gets money as well, too, from the sales tax. So all of a sudden, the politicians going, this is not working out like we thought it would. We thought we were going to make lots of money on this. We're not making the money we're talking about. So the thing goes on to talk about, and what's bizarre about it is it shows a picture. And to me, hold on a minute. I'm going to screenshot this picture, which cracks me up. Okay, I'm going to send you this, okay? And this is, to me, I'm going to send it to you and somebody else as well, too. I won't say who that somebody else is. You'll both get it, okay? To me, this is the problem, because it shows a guy in a state-approved marijuana, I guess, it looks like he's outside. This is a farm.
Yeah, it looks like he's definitely in a blue Colorado sky.
Right. It's beautiful, and you can see a fence in the background. And what's he doing? He's inspecting the tag that's on the marijuana plant. Each plant has a numerical identification tag, and they have to report all this stuff to the government. Okay, right off the bat, What do you think, John? If all of a sudden the government decided to come in and say, okay, John, when you do your top 3 on Brad and John's show every morning, we have to have a sales tax report by noon that day, and you have to report to us exactly in detail what each of your top 3 was. And if you don't file that report by noon, there will be a 20% excise penalty tax on top of what we're already charging you to do the top 3 on the Brad and John show. Wouldn't you at one point in time go, you know what, Brad, it's not worth doing this show anymore. Too much government work. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I would start a pirate. I would just do it on a pirate radio station to steal your analogy here, Brad, and go to the black market. Now, what those stats don't say, Brad, so should we assume that demand for cannabis products has stayed flat and all that revenue has gone to the black market? Or is there a chance, I guess my point is, there's a chance that maybe you've had demand fall off slightly as well. So it's not. So in other words, $1 incremental down in revenue for the official government-approved dispensary doesn't necessarily mean it went to the black market. I mean, there could be a decrease in demand. There could be a lot of people that wanted to try cannabis once it got officially legalized and were like, oh, I'm going to buy 4 joints a day and I'm going to smoke every day. And then they're like, nah, I'll just smoke 2 days a week now. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, let me give you one more paragraph out of the story. And this is the subheadline. Pueblo City Council works to incentivize the struggling industry. The downward trend and its impact on the industry has not been lost on Pueblo City Council, which voted 4-2 in late December. This is December of 2024. This is
23.
This is in 23 because the article is written February 24. So they voted 4-2 in late December of 2023 to eliminate the city's retail marijuana excise taxes for 3 years. The 8% excise tax on retail marijuana cultivated within city limits had been collected by the city between 2016 and 2023. They're going to give up their 8% because they're killing the marijuana business. I mean, here we go again. Things like this just drive me nuts. You know, and I think the sad thing is, I don't care who the politician is. I don't care if it's people I like and I know. And I remember sitting in a meeting where Steve Ehlmann was there, and he was complaining about the fact that they're going to lose their 3% marijuana tax. You remember they still had the fight between the munis and the cities, talking about the 6% or whatever the deal is. And I'm thinking to myself, go back to Brad when he was in high school. And go back to Brad and when he's a senior in high school and someone says, there's going to be a day when this straight-laced government official is going to be complaining about the fact that he's not getting his share of the marijuana tax. And first off, my first reaction would be, well, hold on a minute now. You mean they're actually selling marijuana legally and there's a tax on it and the county's getting money for that? How did that happen in Missouri? Get what I'm saying?
I think it all started with the lottery, Brad. That's what young Brad Hildebrand would say.
And it's one of my favorite things in life. It's called incrementalism. Right? Incrementalism. You don't, what's the old saying? If you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, he's going to jump out. But if you put him in water that's lukewarm, you slowly turn up the temperature.
Hey, as Brad used to say right off of Newhall's Ferry Road, when the sun set, it's just the tip.
Never mind. Okay.
Brad's bench seat dissertations in the 1970s.